Gordon is here as one of our amazing kindergarten students. He's in Mrs. Cole's room, and she nominated him for this honor. He already told me that this is a little too tall, so.
Turn on the microphone, Laura.
Turn it on.
Oh, whoops.
Thank you.
So I asked Mrs. Cole to share a few words about Gordon. So she says, he is an all-around great kid. Is that true? Mm-hmm. Gordon is always kind and helpful to his classmates and teachers. He is motivated to learn and is enthusiastic during every part of our school day. Is that true? Yeah, fact check this, So, he's super curious and asks great questions. He especially loves to be challenged and is really become quite a reader. So he is excited to share a decodable text with you tonight. So, go ahead, take it away.
Do I read this or do the pledge first?
How about you read that first? That's a great question.
Okay. My kite. I am Miles. This is my kite.
Go like this, like teachers do.
It has stripes. There is lime on it. The kite will go up. It can go side to side. It can also make a dive. Oh no, my kite is fun. It makes me smile. I am glad it is mine.
Pretty amazing kindergarten reading. Well done. So now we're going to do the pledge. So the flag is that way. Put your hand on your heart, and then when you start, we'll start. So you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jeez, boys.
Very dapper. So thank you for coming. All right, and you did such a terrific job reading that book. I work in an elementary school. That was phenomenal, fantastic reading. And I think the way you held those pictures, you have a real possibility and promise of being a great teacher someday. I look forward to seeing you again sometime. Keep up the great work, okay?
Okay.
So there's no amendments to the agenda, so do I have a motion for the approval of the agenda?
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second?
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right, approval of the March 19 public minutes.
I saw no.
Did anyone see anything that needed editing?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from March 19th.
Second?
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Wherever you're going to be more comfortable.
Can you hear? Yeah, maybe it's the mic. Yeah,
Closer to the mic, or if we can move the mic.
It
I can just
won't.
move.
That's everything on the table.
All the pens go flying.
All right, so I think it's been 3 months since I last saw you guys, so I'm not really going to focus too much on December or January because not a lot went on, but 3 of our students were named commended students due to the National Merit Scholarship Program and their performance on the PSATs. Bowling has come and gone, so has most of our winter sports, YEA is our Young Environmental Activist Club. Went to the Bank of New Hampshire State in Concord for the Youth Climate Action and Clean Energy Forum, where they talked about like winter recreation and like outdoor stuff. 5 CBNA music students were selected for the New Hampshire All-State Chorus and Band. On February 17th, we had our Winter Wonderland dance. Also in early February, we had our Poetry Out Loud. Not sure if you guys are familiar with. Okay, you guys are cool. Because our National English Honor Society did like our ushering and stuff, and we had a lot of people go on to like higher levels. And we, notoriously, one of our like chorus kids and like theater kids, Eve Dewborn, always does really well, and I think she placed second this time, so she's continuing her streak. Our robotics tournament was February 3rd. My little brother was a part of that, so I was a volunteer and as a supporter. It's actually really interesting to see robotics tournament. That was really cool. It was like an all-day, like 12-hour thing. 33 works were recognized by the 2004 Scholastic Art Award for New Hampshire. Our swim team, all 4 members, earned a spot in the state championship. Our boys indoor track won D2 state championship. And then end of February, before February break, we had our winter carnival. So we had our whole spirit week of jerseys and like Twin Day, Decades Day, Colors Day, Seasons Day. And more fun, one of our zoology classes were visited by some people with some owls to learn about different species. Some other science classes got to see them. I did not, but I saw the photos. Our theater department did Elsewhere on March 8th and 9th, which was a very interesting show, but very good. One of our construction classes made some repairs to our tunnel. FFA participated in the New Hampshire Spring Interscholastic event at UNH. Our jazz ensemble, which my little brother is also a part of, placed in the top 5 at the Clark Terra UNH Jazz Festival. Theater department, for the first time in a few years, qualified for states and won an award for their excellence in ensemble acting for small mouth noise sounds, I think. Senior Day was March 15th at Apex Entertainment Center. It looked like they had a lot of fun. And then one of our New England history classes went to our kitchen to do like food recipes from like early New England times and like more present day. And then last Friday was our freshman lock-in. Sadly, my grade didn't get to do that, but freshmen did have it last Friday. And then more future stuff, because I don't think I see you guys again, is NHS is doing Mr. Usinger's Spring Fling Dance in honor of Mr. Usinger on this Friday. They're also electing officers right now, so a lot of people are hopeful because last year most of our officers ran unopposed, and every student dreams of being elected without giving it a speech. So that's happening pretty soon. Our Spanish Honor Society is doing a car wash on May 5th. Which I'm apparently participating in because we needed more people. Our FBLA, just today, 3 of our members left for SLC. So it's a 2-day overnight thing in Manchester where you get to meet with other FBLA groups and you compete in different things. As far as I know, one of them is competing in marketing, and that's all I'm aware of. And also last week we had SATs, so all of our juniors were pretty stressed out last week. But not me, it was fine. But yeah, that's most of it. Thank you. Of course.
That's all well and good, but how's Senior Assassin going?
An email was sent out about not breaking the law, but
that's good.
it is pretty funny seeing people walk around in their lifeguard jackets and swim goggles to protect themselves.
There's a kid that shows up to work every day wearing floaties.
Yep. Apparently it's going pretty okay. The school's not so happy, but apparently it's going pretty okay.
It seems that's the general theme, that the school itself doesn't tend to endorse it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Thank you. Any more questions for me? Oh, all right.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And if we don't see you again, enjoy the rest of your year.
Thank you. I have ASP this summer, so I'm going over to St. Paul's for 5 weeks.
Oh, that's
That's awesome.
Yeah.
My niece did that, and she loved it.
Yeah. My APUSH teacher is like one of the board, so she spoke very highly of it. So I got told I got accepted a few weeks ago, so 5 weeks of my summer. Thank you so much.
What are you going to study?
Long governance.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you.
Get home safe.
All right, so we're up to public comment. We'll start with folks in person, online. If you want to participate, please raise your hand. Dan, you'll have your own moment with select board update. Would you like to contribute anything? Nope. All right, so online, any hands raised? I don't see any. Okay, but fret not, we'll have another opportunity later in the meeting.
It's our new coined phrase.
All right, time for a select board update.
There's not a great deal to update. We haven't had a meeting since we last had a school board meeting. We do meet Monday, and we're going to have a strategic session, because right now, now that we've voted all these things, we now have to start executing them. So there's going to be quite a bit of time spent. I know the library board is going to be very busy. They actually have a building committee. They're going to be very active. We're going to try to sort through all these things that we voted on and worked very hard for, but now we have to implement. It's easy to get them on the ballot, and then it's easy if it gets selected, then it gets hard for what we're going to do with these things. I haven't heard, because I've been away a little bit of late, but I'm not sure where we are with our meeting of our joint committee. And I don't know if, Deanna, you're involved with Connor, if you talked to him about that. I know
We have our first regularly scheduled meeting tomorrow morning, and it's on the agenda tonight to talk about further defining that committee.
Right, okay. We haven't talked about it much amongst ourselves, although I think I know who the people are that are going to be part of that. So I didn't have the date or time, so thank you for that. That's one of the reasons I come. Thank you.
We don't need to be at that one yet. That's just for, okay. No, that's our regular, no. That's
I was
just
gonna
ours.
say, wait, they don't know who's going and you have a meeting scheduled.
That's
If this,
Connor
if
and I.
this meeting gets off the ground,
Okay.
Yes.
do you think you'll need to come to these? I mean, not that I just don't know, like, I love it when you come.
I don't know either.
I was wondering if it's redundant.
I think I probably will, just for one thing, I'm kind of interested in what the school board does,
Yeah.
but just as a personal thing. But I think my participation here should be more than just this involvement of the joint thing. I always felt part of my job was to kind of let you know what we're doing in general terms, especially those that relate to the school, but not necessarily things that directly relate to the school, but some of the things. Like the library, very important part of it, is very much involved with the school, although not directly part of the school board. So I think unless you don't want me to come anymore.
No, I just, I just the offer.
Yeah, what are you trying to get at?
I take it very personally, but
Is there anyone else who could come? That's what. No, I just didn't want to see you. I mean, I know you're busy.
I'll
like,
wear a costume.
Yeah, no,
if
it's
that would make it
I
better.
just didn't want to see there be redundancy if
I
it was
appreciate
going to
that.
get
No,
achieved elsewhere.
I don't, my vision of this committee is it won't necessarily be redundant to what we do here.
Got
But, I think we're going to be focused on certain things that obviously will come up for both boards. But I think there are other things that come up before our board that should be of interest to the school board. Again, not directly necessarily, but just to be part of this. So.
Dan, and that meeting tomorrow is just between Deanna and Connor.
Oh,
Yeah, Rick and I will not be attending. I think we're still getting our ducks in a row as well.
Separate from
Yep.
that committee, Connor and I have established a regular monthly, just
yeah,
touch base.
Okay. So, just he hadn't called me. I'd like to say we'd identify. I think it'll probably be Ms. Capiella and I will be the representatives from the select board, and we'll firm that up next Monday when we have that meeting. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Nice try, Gary.
Close but no cigar.
Can't get rid of him anyway.
Okay, so it is, I can't believe that it is that time of year already to talk about Educator Appreciation Week. So for those listening or watching later, in our district, even though nationally it's called Teacher Appreciation Week, Barrington is very special, truly, and we do like to do things differently here for the better, I think. So instead of just having it be Teacher Appreciation Week, we historically have done Educator Appreciation Week, which is thanking all staff for their efforts. And so the last few years I've come to the board asking for a budget, which, again, for those in the audience, comes from our school board budget line, not from like just general funds, but to take, it's been $500 the last few years, to just do something special for the staff. This year, Educator Appreciation Week is May 6th through 10th. And unfortunately, though, some of the ideas that I've been thinking of that we haven't already done or that would maybe be not some, I mean, nobody I think wants like a personalized pen. So just something that has some meaning to it. I don't know how much I can stay under $500. So last year I covered the difference. It was more than 500. And so I'm hoping to change the verbiage where I don't know what I'm doing yet, but if I could have just a little bit more freedom so that I don't have to not do something just because it's maybe an additional 5 cents more per staff member because we've expended funds, it would be great. So I'd like to ask for the wording of up to $650 for teacher appreciation, or educator appreciation, sorry.
Do you think that's enough to be able to give you what you need to do?
Yes. Last year it was really like the shipping charges and then to make them look cute, make the little gifts look cute was really what pushed it over the edge, so.
So you put a picture of Garth in the...
Yes,
gift,
absolutely.
I mean,
That's priceless. Those are on sale.
Everyone gets a yard photo of Garth's face.
In light of inflation, I'd like to make a motion that carries, or that the school board is authorized to spend up to $750.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And Carrie, thank you so much for always spearheading this on behalf of the school board.
Of course.
By letting her spend $750, we won't have, they won't have to have a picture of Garth now, will they?
All right, so we have some special guests here to present to us.
Where? Oh.
You are on a roll tonight.
I'm on camera right now.
Sprite.
So, thank you for having us. We have some hard copies of things. We forwarded out the over 100 pages. Oh, you printed
I
them.
printed them out.
See, I was trying to be fiscally responsible, but, it's
No, I printed them out from my home computer. Everyone, from my home computer.
We would have printed them for you here.
It's okay.
So I'm Elizabeth Talon. For those of you that don't know me, I'm the assistant principal at Barrington Middle School, and we have Abby Hatfield here, who's a 7th grade amazing science teacher at Barrington Middle School. So we're here tonight to talk to you about the NEASC process, which we'll get into the cycle of, but it's basically a 10-year process of reflection. Some people don't put a lot of stock into it. They think it's all about just getting a banner hung at the school, but it's really about looking inward and reflecting on what's going well in your school and what needs improvement. And the group, it's a large organization made up of, educators that a lot of schools in New England go through for accreditation. So for whatever it's worth, I think it's really valuable for the self-reflection and improvement piece. So you have the copy of the presentation in case you want to take any notes, and then the 2 other pieces we put separately just so you can look at while we're going through the presentation. This explains
I have this
the standards for accreditation. So these are the 5, items that we're kind of graded on in terms of what needs improvement or what we're doing well. So that's what we'll be referring to throughout the presentation. So just a quick outline of what we're going to do. We're going to explain the NEASC process, the 10-year cycle, where we're at right now, where we're going. Like I said, we shared with you earlier today the report of the visiting team that came to Barrington Middle School in November. We're going to talk about how we rated ourselves and how we were rated by the visiting team. Then we'll talk about the commendations, which is all the great things that we're doing at Barrington Middle School. And then some of their priority areas that they thought we needed to improve on, which is what you see in this kind of color-coded chart. We went and created a Barrington Middle School improvement plan or growth plan. This is the chart. That's the chart. Any questions so far about the materials in front of you? Great. All right, so huge thank you to these people, the NEASC committee that we have at Barrington Middle School. Again, those are the 5 standards we're rated on, so each staff member basically took on a standard and led the charge of looking into that. Kyle Widness started the process last year, but he left. Janine Roberts took over. Tyler Chasen, a 6th grade social studies teacher, took on standard 2, which is looking at student learning, and that's worth saying that's actually the biggest standard. Standard 3, professional practices, was taken on by Abby. Standard 4, Matt Kern's learning supports, that's like your special ed, your 504, MTSSB, all that good stuff. And then I took on learning resources with Ginger Kelso, 5th grade. So huge thank you to those people, and a huge thank you to Abby, who's co-chairing all of this with me. She's been through this process many times, so she's a wealth of knowledge.
So as she was saying, it's a 10-year cycle. The purpose of it is to kind of guide schools in meeting their goals and helping them kind of align with the principles of NEAS, which are all focused on student learning. It's just like a really important system for us to kind of assess what we're doing in our current practices and then kind of reflect on like where we could maybe improve. So we started with, as she said, each person had a different standard, and we had teams of teachers working on each standard, and we wrote the self-reflection with all of the evidence that they gathered. We surveyed stakeholders, community members, teachers, students, and all of that work went into the self-reflection. Then we hosted the collaborative conference visit in the fall. We had, I think we have a slide coming up that has the team members on it, but we had a visiting team of 5 members that came. They did classroom observations, they may have met with some of you, they met with teachers and students and families, and then they made a report, and we received their report. And then we're right now on that 3rd box, which is the development and implementation of the growth plan, using the information from our report and their report. This is to prepare for an upcoming decennial accreditation visit, and after that visit, we'll have another report, and then we'll revise our growth plan. The whole time, we're supposed to be making progress towards our growth plan based on the priority areas that we identified. And then we'll have progress updates, and then we'll start the whole process over again.
Lots of reports. All right, so the timeline, like Abby said, we went through the self-reflection process last spring, and that's when that staff kind of led the entire staff through grading ourselves against these standards, and that's one of the reports I sent to you earlier today. In November, like Abby said, we had the collaborative conference where we had 5 educators from other schools come into our school. They went on a school tour led by our student council. They went into classrooms for pretty, like, a whole period, which is really important, I think. They met with parents. They met with all of our staff. They met with SAU staff so they could get their hands on the budget and facilities reports and things like that. I believe they met with a few school board members at the time. And then they lock themselves in a room and spend an entire day writing a report. So it's a lot of work for them, but we get a lot of good feedback out of it. In December, we received their report on our report. And like I said, that is how we created this improvement plan. So we're going to work on that basically between now and November of 2025, when they will return with, I think, 10 people. It's bigger the second time. I think it's 10 people the second time around. So these are the people that came to visit BMS in November, kind of from all the Maine, New Hampshire, and Massachusetts, mostly middle schools. I think it's worth saying they were really impressed with our school. And Abby and I have both been on visiting teams before. You're not really supposed to give feedback during the process, but they were like really, really amazed. They were impressed with the kids' behavior. They were really impressed with the teaching they saw. And they made so many comments about the community feel within the school. And so we got a lot of really positive feedback during their visit.
And the building. They were all very impressed by
Yes.
the building. They just thought the grounds were beautiful.
All right, standards.
All right, so we have a page that has the standards on them. It says 2020 Standards for Accreditation.
Right here.
If you wanted to take a look at those, you'll see that it lists kind of like a title with each standard. The first one is learning culture, and then there are 2 foundational elements that go with learning culture. The foundational elements are what you really need to have in order to meet that standard. They then like delineate it into further specific things you have to do. But so each one, the first one is learning culture. The school community provides a safe environment The school has a written document describing its core values, beliefs about learning, and vision of the graduate. Standard 2 is student learning. There's a written curriculum and a consistent format for all courses in all departments across the school. Standard 3, professional practices. The school has a current school improvement or growth plan. Standard 4, learning support. The school has intervention strategies designed to support learners. And then Standard 5, learning resources. The school site and plant support the delivery of curriculum, programs, and services. So when they came and did their visit, they, as we were saying, wrote a report. And part of that report is rating us on each of the elements. We also rated ourselves in our self-reflection on each of those foundational elements. So as you can see, the staff were harder on themselves than the visiting committee was.
So this is getting into the commendations. So I know Carrie has the report in front of her, but on pages 40 to 41 is where those commendations start.
So commendations are areas where the school aligns to the foundational elements and to the principles. These areas are recognized as being things that we did really well, things that are seen throughout the school, that are part of our culture, and were seen by the visiting team throughout multiple classrooms and classes or grade levels. So we had a really positive culture and climate. They noted that it fosters a sense of safety, trust, and respect. They thought that our school culture really reflected our core values. Even though we don't have like a portrait of a learner yet, we do have core values, and they were really impressed with those. They were impressed with our inclusive process when we were creating our code of conduct and behavior matrix. They really thought it promoted responsibility and ownership at every level, student, teacher, classroom. And then they also were really impressed with our commitment to taking responsibility for the learning and well-being of all students.
There's a lot of commendations, so this is a couple slides, which is good. They were really, really, really impressed with the work our MTSSB committee has done and the SEL curriculum happening throughout the school from 5th to 8th grade in the advisory setting. Most of them were coming from middle schools where that just isn't happening. It's just not in place for them yet. So they were impressed in every advisory they went to. The teacher was delivering some sort of social emotional instruction, and they were really impressed with that. They said they could really sense the growth mindset in most of the classrooms. There were either things on the wall or the teacher was talking about perseverance or things like that. So they were impressed with that. Innovative methods to achieve common goals. They were really impressed as well with the new guiding coalition model. They came and spoke with the guiding coalition, and those staff basically said, we're all making these decisions. This is not a top-down structure, which has created a lot more staff buy-in since we implemented that structure. Some of those teachers were really kind of jealous that they weren't in, they're in more of a top-down situation. And intellectual risk-taking. They saw and read about some pretty awesome projects. You guys are aware of a lot of things like the rockets or the curriculum fair in 5th grade. And so they sensed that staff felt that they were going to be supported if they tried new things, which is definitely what's going on in our school. But for a visitor to be able to come and sense that, I think that's really important. High degree of civic engagement, and again, that community piece. They said, between pictures on the wall or the code of conduct posters that the kids created and referred to themselves, kindness ambassadors with 8th graders going to kindergarten to donate to the food pantry. I think Barrington is so special in that way, the way that our community is all intertwined with the schools and the schools are connecting with each other. And again, that was something they could sense just after a day or so in the school. And obviously Dancing with the Stars was just about to happen, so the school was abuzz with all of that. They loved the habits of work, so the fact that we report out on a student and their work habits, not just their grades. So maybe a student isn't getting straight 4s or straight A's. But the teacher can still say, they're not quite there yet with their math concepts, but man, are they busting their butts working hard. So that they're still maybe getting some positive feedback, even though their grades might not be, all 4s. Obviously, all the work we've done with math, that was really on the forefront on a lot of teachers that they talked to, so they were impressed with the vertical alignment there between the elementary school and the middle school. And they saw and read about a lot of project-based learning, a lot of hands-on stuff, a lot of choice for students, which is super important. So they reflected a lot on that.
They were also very impressed with our widespread use of personalized learning. They were impressed with the diverse opportunities we have for assessment and just learning in general, so that we can accommodate student needs. They were impressed with opportunities for learning beyond the school building and day, and how a lot of teachers use essential questions or I can statements to guide instruction. They were also very impressed with our wide range of technology used by students to show what they know. They were really impressed with how willing staff are to use data collection tools to identify areas of needed development in academics or social emotional learning, and also just our ability to do it. They were very impressed by that. They also were really impressed by our range of timely, coordinated intervention strategies for all students. They really thought that we went above and beyond to make sure kids were successful and to check in on everybody's well-being.
And that connects to the DESA assessment that we use. That's that social emotional assessment that teachers or advisors, answer some questions to rate their students on where they're at with the CASEL competencies, things like decision-making, responsible choices. And so they loved that we actually use that data. The teachers take the time to do those assessments, and then our student support team, our two school counselors, school psychologists, and social worker get together after each of those assessments and make sure that the students who are rated in need or in the lower end of the in need are all part of a group or getting some sort of individual intervention for social emotional if they're not, already receiving some sort of services. So again, they were impressed that we have these, procedures in place to make sure no kid is falling through the cracks. And we're revisiting that data on a regular cycle. Again, the physical setup of the school, it's a huge footprint, but the pod model, makes it feel like a smaller community, which is really important, especially like for our 5th and 6th graders. We're still kind of adjusting. So they really liked that. They were impressed with 504 and special services. Again, the strong community support. I think that a lot of teachers identified they felt supported by the school board and, were supported financially, but also pedagogically. Well-maintained facility, really clean, and the fact that we have foresight, right? So our building is over 20 years old at this point, and it's in great shape, but we know things might, start to fall a little bit. So the parking lot, the roof, the air conditioning, all of that, the fact that we have the capital reserves and things like that ready to go for when those things are needed, they were impressed with that. So that's all the great stuff we're doing. And then like I said, we came up, the NEAS committee designed the school improvement plan. Not gonna read through this word for word, but basically what we did was we took the priority areas that they identified as we think these are the things you guys should really focus on, and we aligned them with our district goals, our 5-year district goals, and basically said, how are we gonna tackle this? So priority area 1 is basically standardizing our curriculum and the way it's presented. We have a great 5-year curriculum cycle, so that's going, but we really just kind of need to make sure that everyone's on the same page with what curriculum they're using and how they're presenting it. Things like syllabi, is one science teacher doing kind of a similar format so parents and students are aware. And what we learned when we started looking at this is all of those things are there in the Google Drive, but there's just so many folders, so we just need to take some time to organize that and make sure everyone is getting on the same page. So when a new staff member comes in, for example, we can just say, here's your 6th grade social studies curriculum, and it's not a difficult learning curve. So we're totally on track to get all of that done by next June, no problem. The second priority area, we didn't have at all, so that was easy. We just got to do it, right? The portrait of a learner. For those of you who are around in the early 2000s of education, it was 21st century skills for graduates, and now it's portrait of a learner. So we've begun this work. It's really exciting. The group we have has parents, local business leaders, staff, and we're basically trying to come up with 6 to 8 characteristics that we want our 8th graders to go out into the world with. You know, not everyone's going to college. It's not all about academics. What are the skills that people need to go out into the world? We are looking at the schools we send to, the high schools that we send to. 2 out of the 3 of them have a vision of a graduate. Dover just went through this process, actually. So we are looking at that for, you know, some guidance, but Barrington's special and we want to do our own thing. So some of you are on that committee, and that work is really good. So we will definitely be on track to get that done for this summer. And then the bigger step is going to be, how are we going to report out on that? You know, if we're saying it's important for our learners to attain these skills, what is, you know, if we go with collaboration, for example, how are we going to report that out on a kindergartner and an 8th grader? So how are we going to embed it into what we do? That'll be the bigger work.
Yeah, I'd also like to add for those first 2, both of them, like, we have policies describing core values and beliefs about learning. It was just that portrait of a learner that we were missing. And also teachers are tracking their curriculum. They have units, they have essential questions. It just doesn't look the same for everyone. So it was really kind of like we almost met, but we just need it to all be in a uniform, consistent, easily accessible format. Okay, so priority area 3. This one was focusing on that 3.1 that was on our list of like does not meet in the foundational elements. 3.1 was that we have a district improvement plan in place, but we don't have like a Barrington Middle School specific growth plan. So we are showing you what we came up with now. It should kind of inform our decision making within the school, but it should also align with those 5-year Barrington School District goals. So we tried really hard to do that. So we said that we would, I don't know, did we put a end date for that one?
No.
I don't think we did, but we've started. It's going to guide our work throughout the rest of the NEASC process and moving forward. And then priority area 3 was also focusing on that. So for this one, our priority area goal statement was that the school will engage educators in collaboration and professional development to improve curriculum instruction, assessment, and inequities by examining data. This one was more focused on data. I should have started with that. So this one, we feel like we've already sort of put some of the things in place, but we haven't, we have some more work to do. We're going to use our CTT meetings to dedicate some time to analyzing data and just making sure that we're using that data to inform teaching and services in all areas. We also thought about offering some professional development.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
And if you don't want questions, that's fine.
No.
But I'm looking at what was recommended. How did you jump from they want like a data-driven review of how things are being done to your response is we're going to add a math interventionist? It had nothing to do with that. It was just like we want more data in reviewing your processes. Why math interventionist came to the forefront of.
So, well, I think that was part of the data we weren't great at looking at is we have these benchmark assessments that we give and use, and then we get the data after, say, iReady. Mm-hmm. But, other than the tier 1 instruction that they're giving in math classes, how can we get to the tier 2, tier 3 without, necessarily referring a kid to special ed for that intervention? So the math specialist, the math coach position was part of that at the time, but I think that's shifted.
It was also something that we identified in our self-reflection as an area of need.
I just wanted to add for the professional development on data analysis, I was going to ask if you could expand on that, but you did. And I just want to say I think that's a really, really great idea that I support, because I think it's not always, it's a science in and of its own. And we have so much data, but the interpretation of it and then actually discussing it with your colleagues and making an action plan from the data, having it be truthful to what the data shows rather than making inferences. It's hard. It's hard to do, especially when you're a stakeholder in that process. And so I think that that's a really great idea, rather than just saying, do some data analysis. What does that mean? Especially for a lot of staff, that might be the real first time that they're looking at it from that lens. So I'm glad that you added that in to help staff be successful.
Totally great. There's actually a small group of us at the middle school right now taking a data course for that exact reason.
I know it doesn't sound super fun to everyone, but I'm like, man, that must be so
yeah,
great.
It actually is really interesting. Yeah, it's a lot, but I'm really enjoying it.
That's great.
Yeah, so that's definitely on the docket for next year, especially with the CTT meetings, to look at some of that data.
That's great.
But we're going to need some professional development before we just jump right into it.
And also in our self-reflection, we had evidence that we had collected when that team was working.
For the math piece.
Yeah, it's not coming to mind exactly what we had in there, but there was reasoning.
Yeah, no, I'm sure there was. I mean, very thoughtful. But so, like, once the school response plan is implemented, what data points can we expect will be?
For this?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
What do
for
you guys-
this whole process, they'll come back in November of 2025 and they'll look at what was recommended and they'll judge, have we done enough to now say we meet the standard or do we still need to improve?
I guess what I'm asking, and again, it's just my naivety. It's not you guys off the top of your head. What data points are you going to be looking at in sort of evaluating how you're doing? Like
For the data question?
Yeah, the data, because that's a pretty data-driven.
Yeah, so there's big picture data, right? Like iReady, SAS scores, and things like that. But the idea now is we want and it's harder, and not to make excuses, but it's harder in our middle school. Some bigger middle schools, you have 2 7th grade science teachers who can sit down and say, okay, we're going to give this common formative assessment, and then we're going to look at what questions your students got wrong, what questions my students got wrong, and evaluate our teaching based on that.
Right.
But we can't do that piece of it, but what we can say is, all right, we're really going to target writing for the next 6 weeks as a whole school. So everyone's going to give some sort of common formative assessment to do with writing, whether it's in their 7th grade science class or their 8th grade social studies class, and use the data from like formative assessments to judge how students are doing on whatever that writing standard or that specific reading standard. Does that make sense? No. You could say no.
So the whole goal is like to improve our curriculum and our instruction, right?
Right.
The whole goal is like a process
Absolutely.
to reflect on that. So I think comparing our scores, SAS data, iReady data, things like that, and
So
math
SAS and iReady.
specifically.
That's for that's the bigger picture.
For math.
But what we want to get down to the more daily
Granular.
instruction, that's more reflective.
So they didn't like give you,
They didn't give us any.
they didn't coach you and say, we want you to be more data-centric, but they didn't tell you what data you
Well,
want. we
no,
want
they
you to-
did. They said, we want you to be more data-centric.
And just left it there.
Yeah.
So because they evaluate colleges, they evaluate like every school level really that there is. And every district has different programs, so they're not prescriptive of like, your iReady scores need to be this, because not every school has iReady. So it's really whatever we're doing. They're not telling us to necessarily change what we're doing to something else, some other program, if
So were
that
they,
makes sense.
and I'm trying to interrupt, but I'm just trying
Yeah,
to
that's
clarify.
okay. As many
Like,
questions.
Was there a question asked, well, what do you mean? Like, if we're lacking in data analysis, what are we not doing that you think we should be doing?
There isn't really part of the process for us to ask clarifying questions.
So they must have, but they saw something, but we don't know what they saw?
I'd
I
have to
can
look
check the
back.
page in the report.
Yeah, I'm just curious, like, what was it that they?
I think, well, part of it is teachers, like staff information too. So it might have been in an interview with the math teachers that
Yeah.
said, we need to look more closely at data. I know that's one part of what they were impressed about with the DESA stuff was that's why I said we're using that data. So they were
Yeah.
like, wow, you're doing great with this data. So now
Just carry it
do it
over
more
to,
globally with
okay.
other information.
And I don't want to hold you up, you guys are good.
There is something in the report, because when I did not get through all of it. But the ones that I did read so far were like almost step-by-step narrative of what they did from the minute they walked in the door.
Okay.
So it's I do think it's somewhere in here. Because I remember reading it. It's like, I walked through the door and you needed key entry. I was like, oh my gosh, okay. So it must be pretty specific. I'll have to, if you know where it is, that would be cool. But
They also
pretty thick.
did mirror a lot of what we wrote. Like, there wasn't a lot that I feel that they disagreed with.
No.
They also probably,
so
where we
quick, too. I was,
identified
like,
that we had a
speeding.
need for that, they were trying to help
gotcha.
us. Because their goal is ultimately to help us, not to give us like more hoops to jump through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I understand that, you don't have colleagues going to be administering common formative assessments, but can you also look at data and say, well, like particularly in math, this skill builds on this skill. So look at the population and say in 5th grade they had this skill. In
Yep.
6th grade, what percentage of them got the next step?
Yeah,
And if not,
100%.
how are we gonna look at that teaching? Or in 7th grade, how many got it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like looking at those kind of essential standards and how they're progressing towards them. So it's not necessarily a common formative assessment, but looking at a common, skill that
Yep.
develops and looking at the teaching that way? Is that
Yes.
something you think?
Absolutely, and I think
found it in
with
the report.
the iReady assessment as well as
Got it.
the Ready
Thank you.
curriculum, that's easy to do because they align.
My background comes in the wall. I found,
Perfect.
from the visiting team, it just talks about how the science department could look at SAS data, the math department could use iReady and SAS.
Yeah.
Things you already know, but then it looks like it turns it over to you.
It's saying we're collecting a lot of data, but
Collect it.
we're not
doing
using it.
No,
We're
do
not
with it what you
analyzing
will.
it,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah, we have a lot of,
Yeah.
like I said, bigger picture data. So that's the next step, is some professional development on how we can effectively analyze it and then use it to inform our teaching.
All this talk about data. Dave, rest his soul.
Yeah.
That'll be great. I bet you'll identify things that you'll need from a district standpoint, even when it comes to like budget season, much faster and quicker, more agile than you would if you're doing it based off of just
Yeah.
like feeling and experience. So I think it's great. Maybe it'll make budget season easier for everybody. I know.
Almost everybody, right?
Any other questions about NEASC?
Please
When's the
thank
last time we
everyone
did this? Like Leatherman
on the
was pulling his
staff
hair
that
out, like,
participated in this.
But
But yeah, I think this is really great. I know it's a lot of work and I know it's not done, but
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Never done.
just like the reading of these reports, it's,
They've got the
Might
right
take
people
a
on the
while.
job.
so thank you for all this work.
Oh, and thank you for coming tonight to share with us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, and obviously, whatever you guys need through this process, you know that we all, I don't want to speak individually for the five of us, but we're 100% supportive.
Thank you, and they even could get that, so thank you, we appreciate it.
Yeah, so I guess we're up to school board meeting schedule.
It's always trippy because it's like you have to talk for stuff that's like so far
I
in
know,
advance.
but it's almost that time,
I know,
believe it or
I
not. Like,
can't
it's
believe-
already April,
Feels like it's
so.
like September.
The July meetings we talked about last time, so the workshop session on the 16th, and then with no remote access, because we tried that one time, and because we break out into small groups, it becomes very noisy and you can't really hear what the groups are saying. So if anybody wants to participate in that, they will have to come in person. I shouldn't say participate, but listen. And then July 30th, we talked about last time as well, having that be a regularly scheduled board meeting. So then the rest of it is pretty standard. I did eliminate 5:30 starts because we don't really nail them, so why do them?
Some of us do.
Some of us
Oh my
do.
gosh, we
I mean, so that was, we only did one or two if it was a workshop session or during budget season anyway. But I also did, when we get to the timeline, given how cumbersome the process was last year, add some additional meetings and break down the line items so we can have a little more time with those areas.
We're talking about budget season?
Budget, yeah.
Yeah,
There was
but
that
we need to
marathon
break that
meeting.
out.
We
like,
did, I
yeah,
did.
Okay.
So we'll review that next. So that's the school board meeting schedule itself. First and third, other than the summer months, everything else on there is pretty standard. But you will see, there's a lot of additional meetings. So this dovetails with the budget workshop schedule, so I figured this should have all of them, right? Everything, and then this one is just budget related. So you'll see that there's a few extras in there for next year.
And I'm just gonna speak for myself on this, but like when you're making up the agendas for our meetings going forward, and this is something I think Dan was good at, I think, was he understood the appetite we had, he didn't give us 3 or 4 main courses in a given evening. And I think occasionally we tend to put 2 or 3 heavy, and it's like we don't give each one the attention it deserves because we're trying to get through by 10 o'clock at night. So, anyway, I know you're sensitive to that, but I just
Absolutely, yeah. No, and I absolutely agree with you. We've had it's been a busy couple of years because all of our stuff was due at once, the 5-year goals, the mission, the vision, and things did get absolutely heavy. And we're not as thorough and as attentive as we should be when the meetings get too long and are too meaty.
For sure.
So, agreed.
And, especially if we're going to do like, curriculum updates and fidelity readouts, things like that, walkthrough readouts. I mean, those are things we're probably going to want to give extra attention to over the next 12 months or so. Maybe make sure that those have enough time to have it back and forth rather than just be like a readout and then it's move on to the next thing. So,
Sounds good. And as we talk further, I started talking to the principals about having a standardized readout. So if we all at some point want to talk about what we want that structure to look like for next year, so that way you know what you're seeing in front of you. It can be consistent. We know that visually, if we know week to week what we're looking at, it's much easier to digest. You can orient yourself more quickly to the information. So I think if we have some topics, some headings that they regularly report out on, it'll make it a little more smooth moving forward. Great.
All right, so Director of Operations, Committee, job
Are we good
description?
with both of these?
Yeah, oh, sorry, did anyone have any comments, questions, or discussion on either of the timelines? All right.
Are you going to be able to make it by 6?
You may not be
Oh
able
my
to.
gosh. Go ahead, Deanna. Just talk over him.
Can you talk so the camera will go to you? So
It's not over there. Do we typically do motions on our schedules or no?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I don't remember doing
Just
it.
figured I'd throw that out there. Okay.
Wait,
And the
I
next
think
step.
we do.
Do we? I mean, I think we just
do.
publish it once we talk about it, if
Really?
we've agreed to it. But if we want to make a motion, want to have a motion to.
We'll just do it just to be safe. I make a motion to approve the agenda, the schedules as presented.
Second.
So both the meeting schedule and the budget timeline?
Yeah.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Sorry, just let's not have it have to come back and then have to do it.
And the next step with the budget timeline is to then create a timeline for the SBABC as well. So I just wanted to know I hadn't lost track of that. It's just, doesn't have to be done for a little bit. So I figured let's get these on the books first. And then I will dovetail their start of a meeting, as we give them their binders. And of course, give them all this information so they can come to all the initial ones, but then have their meetings published so that the community at large is more
Right.
informed about when the budget
Right.
committee's coming together. Because it's made them a little tentative in the past of, okay, well, we're coming together, we've scheduled a meeting, and, posting that and noticing the community. So we'll make
You
sure.
always forget about that whole posting
Yeah,
timeline.
so we'll make sure
yeah.
that's very out ahead of time of the process this year and very transparent on the website as well as on buildings and local postings.
On the timeline, sorry, I looked at it, but I don't have it in front of me, but does it list when we're posting for our SBAC, school board, ABC?
It does not list it, but I can put that on the ABC timeline.
And we've been doing it earlier and earlier, which I like. I think it gives people much more time. As much as I understand people are busy, 3 people I think is fine, but it puts a lot of pressure on those 3. It's good to have
But we're not
more-
going to set their meeting dates.
Yeah,
They'll set those.
exactly. Right.
So if some of the same participants are on there, they had asked that I create that schedule for them, so I can certainly meet with whoever those members happen to be and see what their opinion is
2
on
of the
that.
3 were great, but it'd be nice to get some fresh blood.
Moving on. Okay, so Director of Operations, 1, hiring committee, typically SAU level positions, there's a board member or 2 involved, so I wanted to start there to see what you all thought about that and who would like to participate.
I would.
Okay,
Jump on.
I'm actually going to ask you, Garth, if you would, just because of the committees you've sat on in the past and the description of this position, I think that would be fabulous.
Slay.
Perfect. I noted in superintendent notes last week, we're not getting a lot of applicants for any position that we have posted, but the applicants that we are getting look to be very high-quality applicants, which is nice. So now that we're establishing this, we will jump on setting those interviews and processes and get going.
Good luck, guys.
So wait, hold on. The job description here, qualifications, did we not, wasn't grant writing a big part of this position that we sold to the taxpayer?
Yep.
And I don't see anything about grant writing as being part of the qualifications.
Well, let's add it.
Okay. It concerns me that that's an afterthought, not to put too fine a point on it.
Well, it's listed there in essential duties and responsibilities. Right?
Yeah, but qualifications, there's nothing under
I
qualifications.
got
They
you.
have to have no experience whatsoever with doing anything with grants.
Yeah, it wasn't an afterthought. I just don't, when I create these, don't typically put, experience with. It falls further below, but if we want it highlighted in the front,
Well, you got
absolutely.
teaching, I'm not quibbling with you, but
Yeah.
teaching experience, 3 years of supervisor administrative role, so
Mm-hmm.
that's experience. But nothing about grant writing. And I thought, I know that when we had public comment,
Absolutely.
one of the persons that came forward and said we're being, penny wise, pound foolish, and kind of sold it, was that it was, the grant writing was going to pay for itself, and that it would be good to have somebody that,
Has experience with.
and I'm not picking on you personally.
No, no,
I'm
not at all.
picking on the process.
No, you're, I
I think
agree
that
with you.
puts it out there saying this is going to be a
This is big.
major part of your role.
Absolutely. It is major. And with the changes in procurement and the policies around grant writing, they're changing the whole process
Yeah.
again this year. Again. So it is intense, and it's going to require some contact with the department and understanding that process. So I will put it at the forefront.
In an evaluation, I think that being successfully rewarded grants, I mean, I know you can't control it, but I think that that's part of the evaluation, is how well do they do at being a grant writer.
That makes sense.
Successfully obtaining
Yeah.
and executing grants. Yep.
That and buses running on time. Well, I'm not, let's just forward facing. That's what people are going to care about.
I would suspect as well that since this position is new to us, once we get going, like this job description will probably
Oh, yeah.
come back to you all, right? Like, hey, we also want to look at.
I'm just going to, like, what I've heard in the, out on the street is that, this is, some people that aren't in the know look at this as another piece of fluff we've added to, the administration that is not going to deal directly with students. If we can, the more we can quelch that by saying, look, this is going to earn us some money, but this was a smart move. It's going to take, and especially taking work off of the curriculum coordinator's desk. Let her focus on what she's supposed to be doing. Let this person get grants. That then all of a sudden makes fiscal sense, and people are going to just
Like working with the middle school to interpret the data.
right.
Absolutely. Agreed.
Yeah, I will say that I think come next budget cycle, we'll have to justify that we've had this position, because that has been a complaint in the community that we are administrative heavy. And, we're adding another SAU level administrator. So we need to be able to say, yes, we told you we thought it would pay for itself.
And here we are. So that report out during the budget cycle. Makes sense to me. Other thoughts on job description? My thinking would be to leave it in draft form through the interview process. Just because we don't know who the candidates are going to be, the skill set, not that we're going to adjust the job description based on that, but we may get a candidate that has a wonderful skill set in a particular area that we want them to explore. You never know. So,
Yeah, I think that with each bullet point here, hopefully by having a person dedicated to this, there should be an improvement over what we've done in the past, that we can go back at the end of the year and say, look at what we gained. Look what your kids gained by this person being on the job,
Sure.
And so, everything from emergency management to transportation coordination, why was it better than it was the year before? What are we trying to, and I'm not, high school liaison. I love the truancy court liaison, and that's just awesome. So, yeah. Okay. Enough said by Garth.
Is
You
it all,
won't get out of
Hold you
all
to
the
that.
court. But
I do enjoy that.
is it also reasonable
Only my
to
second.
believe that this position could, if the superintendent left, would be able to be in a position to potentially replace the superintendent?
Well, we did not require superintendent certification, so it will depend on the candidate,
I
I
got you.
think.
I'm not looking to get rid of you, I'm just, it was a
No, it's a
question.
great
It
question,
was a
actually,
question
and
to-
really, you know,
Yeah, if
it's a
something-
good thing I'm a healthy person
Right.
because
Very
it's,
few.
it's tough, difficult when you're out. I mean, I had a fever a few weeks ago and I still was working from home because it's just the way it is. So, I mean, ideally, you would always want to be promoting and grooming from within, especially in this lovely public educational climate that we have. And the hiring climate has been tough for quite a few years.
I'm a strong supporter of that.
Anything else on the position? Then we went on to the District Town Collaboration Communication Committee. That's a lot of Cs. So, you know, I guess this was one of those things that we talked about at the last meeting, but there was a lot on the agenda, so it was a pretty quick conversation, and I did reach out to the board and to Deanna, say, I'd like this back on the agenda so we can have a little more in-depth. I'll be honest, Rick, I love that you're on the committee, because especially your passion for the collaboration and the communication around budgeting and stuff. One concern I have is, like, the same reason why I'm not negotiating the Dover High contract, because that's my boss, and Jason's not negotiating Oyster River, because that's his boss. On that committee will be your bosses in your other role. So I think we just need to, like, make sure that we're transparent on that there is an obvious, at least appearance of a conflict.
Yeah, so I don't see it as a conflict, and I'll tell you why I don't see it as a conflict, because I don't have any grand vision of what this needs to look like, and I'm a firm believer, I mean, I know what it looked like before and working on part of that, and I think that you go into this with baby steps, and much like Gar said, there's a few things that we could work on that would be mutually beneficial to all the, you want it to be beneficial to the town, and when I say the town, I want to quantify that by meaning that the town as a whole, not the town select board. It's, you know, the idea behind this is to, you know, put ideas out there and say, hey, look, will this work? And I would expect that a vast majority of that would come from between Deanna and Connor. And I certainly wouldn't think that myself or Carrie would go in and make decisions for this board, that, you know.
'Cause you can't.
Right, but I mean, I think that, again, I think the idea is that, for me, I think you put everything on the table at some point or another. I don't see this as something that has to get done tomorrow. It could take years to, one, you have to develop trust again. Trust was lost between the two boards. That has to be earned again. But more importantly is that, hey, this works, and now this works, and build from that, and find ways that, you know, I think the real way for this to work is nobody keeps a scorecard. If at the end of the day, there's going to be things that the school can do to help the town side more because of a bigger government, so be it. But then there'll be things that the town can do that would save the school because the school don't have some of the resources that the town does. And again, you know, even when I was looking to do this to begin with, it was not a, hey, the first day, you know, let's just do this. I think that, you know, you throw ideas out there and say, hey, will this work? And in my little pea brain, you know, I could stand there and say, well, I don't see why the school doesn't do this for the town. And then you realize that maybe you can't do it because there's laws that restrict it, or it's just the staffing isn't there to do it. So I'm not, I don't necessarily see a conflict. I get what you're saying about the fact that, but I don't see anything contentious. I think, I see it
There doesn't
more
have to
of a-
be contention to be
Yep.
conflict. A conflict of interest, that is. It's like, I don't think it will be combative or anything like that. I'm envisioning a very collegial conversations. I do think some people might interpret there's a potential conflict of interest for you because, or at least it has to be very clear when you're at that table, you are representing the school board. And I understand we all serve the same people in the town, and the town does not care if the money comes out of their left pocket or their right pocket.
Right.
Right? But, you know, I do see it as the same as Jason and I not participating. Like, I don't benefit personally from a high school contract, but it doesn't, just to remove any appearance of conflict, that's why I said I won't do that contract, I'll do the other. And so I just think we as a group, and sorry to say you in particular, have to be mindful of that there are people who are going to perceive that this could be, I'm not saying, I don't want to say challenging, but it might be a fine line that you have to walk when you're sitting there. You know, not knowing how these, and I'm assuming, you know, Dan's lovely, Joyce is lovely, you know, assuming that they're gonna be the people, but I just wanna make sure that, we talk about like what we as a group are expecting from this committee for the two of you who are representing us at the committee. Does that make sense?
Yep, makes 100% sense.
One thing I think that will be important as we go, I know Garth is thinking, so thinking of saying something, so while you're doing that, one thing that I know I wanted to propose, I hadn't gotten a chance to talk to Rick about this yet, but that I know not all of our committees do report outs and readouts. Policy, we obviously have to do approvals for, but we don't discuss that, even though the notes are all public and those meetings are all public. We just don't discuss them because we have a lot of other things to discuss during the meetings. I do think, especially maybe if in the beginning, I do think this is one committee where, especially because it had a spotlight, especially because there was different voting in the town, and it was, even the different voting was actually pretty high, almost close to 50-50. I do think there's eyes on it, and so to be transparent and to help us all connect as a board, since only two of us can speak at a time about school board matters, I do think we should do a report after every meeting that can be via email, but then also should be a public discussion of what we talked about, and then let's pose some questions, like here are the things that were discussed, and we always should be discussing, like Rick said, we obviously can't make decisions, but everything should be posed as a question and discussion so that we can bring that back to the meeting room.
I think it's ideal. I think it's something that this board is going to be able to brag about, and the select board will be able to brag about as well, that a new level of collaboration between the two sides. And I want to be perfectly clear. I think that Moira's point is well taken, and I think that there is a laser focus on this committee, not just because of its creation, but also because Chief is sitting on it, because it was his idea to start something like this. This is quite different than what that was. This is going to be sort of a report back to the board and see if there's a way to work together. That was an advisory budget committee that was not binding, but still, it did spur some fears in the district about what that could be. I don't think that we got to be careful. Is it statutorily? I don't think there is a conflict of interest. There might be a perception of conflict of interest. Is that?
Yeah, I don't think they're, like, it's not a voting body, it's not, you know, so that's what I'm just saying. I thought I was being clear, but saying there might be an appearance.
Appearance, okay.
As such,
I think that, but with the attention, as you said, that it was almost a 50-50 vote,
Yeah, it
right?
was
There's going to
close.
be a lot of people looking at this and seeing what comes out of it. So, I mean, I think that
And there's already conspiracy, you know, there's whispers and conspiracies on both sides of, you know, and for better or worse, some are hilarious, some are crazy. But so I think it is good that we called this out in public, that, you know, Maura brought that up. I hadn't thought of it that way, but she has a really good point. And at least we said it in public, because that's the other thing, is that we might discuss it as a board, but does the public get to hear that, yes, we're aware of it, we know, and we're going to take safeguards, which we're talking about now, to make sure that there's no, first of all, personally, to put Rick in an awkward situation too, but that we're going to be above board, of course. I think it's important.
I mean, I'll say this. I mean, I still don't see, and I get it, you know, the public out there, but I don't see the perception, at least from my perspective, of a conflict of interest, because the stuff that I'm interested in doing should be, again, I think the goal should be that we're looking to do things that are mutually beneficial to everything. And that sometimes you're gonna look at something and say, for face value, this looks like a good idea, and then you start to get into the weeds a little bit and look at it and go, well, it's not really gonna work because of this reason. And I had a, I had a person reach out to me and said, you know, when do you folks meet? When are your school board meetings? And I said, well, it's on, hold on a second, I'll look at the school district website. I don't know if it's a second, you know, the first and the third, second, fourth. But, you know, and this individual said to me, well, some of this information should be on the town's website as well. And this is the kind of collaboration that I see out of this committee, that you stand there and say, look, there's certain information that, you know, hey, put on the town's website when the school board meetings are and some of this other stuff, and vice versa, so that maybe there are people that only look at one website or the other. And again, that was, to me, was a simple idea of collaborating, not gonna cost anybody any money, but we're sharing information. And on the town's website, if there's some of the projects like the Invention Convention and some of that stuff, because I think, to me, and I'm getting off track a little bit, is that parents will have a tendency to look at the school website and see this stuff, but the average taxpayers look more to the town's website. So if there's something kind of neat going on in the schools, reading or something like this, if it's on the town's calendar, then it doesn't matter where they go to look and see that stuff. Those are some of the things that I see as part of the collaboration of working together. And then obviously, I hope that as time goes on, we can, you know, 100% say that, you know, if we can do things like, one of the things that we were doing before is purchasing some of the stuff the school was purchasing because they could buy it cheaper than the town because they were buying in bulk. You know, when you look at, I don't know, I'll pick toilet paper, for example. Maybe the school probably uses 500 cases of toilet paper a year and the town uses 50 or whatever it is. So obviously the town's not buying it as cheap as the school is. So those are the kind of things. And like road salt, you know, the school can't buy road salt at the price that the town was getting it for. And not to mention, the school wouldn't have to pay anything for it because the town's already paid for it. Go over and get a load of it and put it in the shed and be done with it. So stop buying road salt. Those, you know, it's those things. And how can, you know, and then as time goes on, look at more and more things. And certainly, I'll say this about myself. If it's in my head, it'll come out of my mouth. I'm not, you know, I'm not afraid to say it.
I'm not sure that's a selling point, Richard.
But
I got one of
I'm not
those.
afraid to tell the people I work for that, you know, again, you know, I can keep the fire department separate, and there's nothing within the fire department that, you know, we do over here. I mean, we do inspections and stuff like that, but other than that, we have a good working, the fire department has a good working relationship, and I certainly wouldn't, though I'm getting ready to retire, I certainly understand them people pay my paycheck, so if I need to step away, then that's where Karen's will go.
I did want to bring up something that I had talked about or thought about for this committee, is that we talked about, because that kind of daily management is important, how we can be efficient day-to-day operations. But I also think that there's an opportunity, maybe once we get past the day-to-day operations, for that long-term strategic planning that I'm very interested in. Like, for example, in Deanna's superintendent notes, she was mentioning some changes that are going to need to happen to some of the SAU buildings and to BES. And so knowing that that's happening, and then being able to project that through conversations that we have, especially after our July meeting where we're discussing this as an admin team and as a board, some of that information I think will be important to talk to the town about as they're doing future planning as well. So I think Rick and I will need a lot of direction on how we want to discuss that in that room, because this is so new. But I think that that's a huge part of it as we collaborate together.
I don't think any of us know what this actually is going to look like, right? I mean, we're going to sit down in a room, we're going to try to figure out ways to work together, and then we're going to report back to the individual boards. And then
group will then make decisions whether or not those are all going to be actionable or not, right? And then the other board is going to do the same thing and then come back and say, we both decided that's a great idea, and then it's going to go forward. So
And I would really like to see.
better to err on trying it than,
Yeah, absolutely.
right?
I would really like to see as much as it can be done at the lowest level possible. What I mean by that is Deanna and Connor working together and say, well, this will work, and this will work, and this will work, and come back to their respective boards and say, hey, we collaborated on this, and this, and we think this would work great. And and then, Carrie and I going into the meetings would bring ideas that you folks have, and I think it's something that should be on the docket on a regular basis, because somebody will say, hey, let's have a discussion about whether this will work or that won't. And
Let's face it, you've got 10 people when you look at the select board and the school board. They're public individuals that are basically fairly concerned about their public reputation, and all of whom want to be able to brag about next deliberative. We sat down with the other side, we worked this out, we're working together, we're grown-ups. That would be a great thing.
for the
to sell.
benefit of everybody.
For the benefit of everybody, and both the school board and the select board would be able to say the same thing. That would be kind of cool, but we'll see how it goes.
I think, that you and Connor have already scheduled regular meetings is a great step in the right direction for all of that increased communication.
Yeah, so one of our goals tomorrow that we had talked about, we met last month, was like, what are those initial, easy things, right?
Low-hanging fruit that can be fixed.
I just don't like that term, I'm not willing to say it. Not willing to say it. I'll say it. What's the low-hanging fruit? Because I think there are, to your point, Rick, some areas where we really can, come back together and collaborate and figure out what works. I had put purpose statement on here. I don't know if anybody has any interest in that. I took a stab at one if you want me to read it, but I think it's important to kind of put some guardrails on that, at least initially.
For the committee? Don't you think the other board should have some?
But
Yeah, just
No.
as a starting point, to bring something forward, I don't know.
no, I think it's a great idea to hear what you have, Deanna, and to bring it forward, knowing, hopefully, Dan, maybe you can bring something forward too, and then that's maybe that's the first test of the water to see how can it even go to create a purpose statement.
And really, it's just reiterating what we've already talked about. So to execute communication and collaboration between the school district / school board and the town / select board in order to promote fiscally responsible decisions as they pertain to all taxpayers in Barrington. Nailed it.
Be still my
Are we
heart.
supposed to say that?
You are. No, kidding. So just something to ponder about for the group when it forms.
I think that
Yeah, I
sounds.
think that's a great thing to propose to the group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? All right.
Absolutely.
Scribbled it as I sat here.
Shut up.
I did. It's on the bottom of the paper
good
right
job.
here.
Nice work.
Just got away with words.
All right, any other discussion on that? On the SDTCCCC?
Oh my gosh,
Yeah, can you
yes.
come up- Sarah, you be good. Come up with a
SDTCCC.
acronym for it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And
Gotta work
another
Barrington in there.
acronym? I don't
That's
think
great.
so.
All right, so we're up to a letter of correspondence.
So in front of the school board, it was not included in the packet because I just received it. I do have a letter of correspondence from Mr. John Safina, principal at the middle school, notifying us that he will be retiring from New Hampshire Public Education at the end of this school year, and as a result is resigning his position as a middle school principal.
Make a motion
That's
to
regretful.
regretfully accept Mr. Safina's resignation.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Thank you for your time in Barrington, Mr.
Good luck in
Safina.
the future.
All right, an elementary school nomination.
Okay, so Hannah Arroyo currently is teaching up at the elementary school. If you recall, we had some late in the game shifts last year, so she did intern with us, and then we ended up hiring her on a one-year contract for this current year. She put forth a letter of interest to continue on when we had an additional position, and she has been a wonderful addition to our school community, and we are proposing that we hire her on moving forward.
Need a motion for
I'm
that?
gonna make a, oh,
No, go ahead.
I make a motion to accept the application for Hannah, what is it?
Arroyo.
Arroyo, thank you.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Welcome back to Barrington.
Yeah, I'm so glad
Hannah.
she's staying,
Grew
yeah.
up here.
Yeah, I was gonna say that name, I recognize that last name.
So what I did is I just showed you her hiring sheet from last year, and then I updated the salary based on the CBA and wrote the date on it, just so you could, no point in wasting more paper and creating more information.
No.
The information stays the same, other than the salary.
We're glad to
Great,
have her here.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, she's been wonderful.
All right.
And then next, you have the massive list of certified staff nominations for the upcoming year, with the yellow highlighted folks being tenured as of this June, and then the orange are folks that will, once they complete next year successfully, will be tenured as of next June. So you can see we don't have the retirement on because we didn't have it, the one you just accepted.
I'll make a motion to accept the nominations for the 24-25 school year.
Yes.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Joe, you have 45 seconds.
Okay, everything's going good.
All right. Katie,
That's fair.
beat that.
No, I was gonna start off by saying that I was hoping to put the plows away and to be able to have all of that stuff done, but that's gone by the wayside. We put everything back on today, getting ready for the known upcoming storm that we have. Other than that, we have been doing a lot of projects with our adequacy money and safety and security grants that we've secured. Been working with Chief Walker on the ECLC. We have a new fire panel up there.
Very pretty
So that-
pictures.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
done. PA systems are in both at BES and ECLC. We're gonna be working on the middle school next. That's in the pipeline. The BES, the April vacation is gonna be the fire panel up there. That will be done. We're actually gonna be doing all of the smokes and stuff with Bob Salisbury, Brian and myself, so that's gonna save us a ton of money on the back end of things. Our bark mulch is getting delivered April 15th. Jesse Tennis and myself have been working together, so she's got 100 yards coming, we have 100 yards coming, so we've been able to save some money. We got it for $2,050 for the 100 yards, which.
Look at that
normally-
town-school collaboration.
That's what we're working towards. So we actually saved about $600, I
That's
think it was.
fantastic.
Between
Yeah.
the two of us working together, and we set up like a day apart. So that has been part of that. We're getting ready to open up the fields. We were hoping to start painting. I think we have our first game coming up, but irrigation will get fired up and everything like that. Lawnmowers are out, oil changes are done. Yeah, just getting everything ready to go. Got bark mulch lined up. Gonna redo all the beds. We've actually, KJ over here at the elementary school this year, this summer, she's actually gonna reclaim all of the beds. So that's gonna be a lot better looking than what it has been in the past, so, with her and her green thumb. So, yeah. Other than that, it's been just one thing after another.
I know I'm a broken record, but has there been any more thought about our new sign at Barrington Middle School?
Yes. So I'm at Tri-City talking with them right now. So what we're gonna do is lift everything up. We're gonna keep the granite posts that we have, 12 by 12 bluestone, put another 5-foot section of granite on top with rebar. Then we're gonna lift that sign up, and then we're gonna do what we did out here for BES and put an electric sign in there so it will light up. But it won't be electric where it's digital, it's gonna be just the letters. So,
You missed the whole.
I can't.
oh no, I've heard all
Digital.
about it, and then
I'll
so.
tell you about it sometime, Joe.
It wasn't
I'll
you.
buy you a
It
drink and I'll take-
predated you.
No, I had to deal with the
her.
trouble.
No, it was
The
her.
person had left, and then I got stuck with
She was presenting.
That
it as
whole
the PTO.
thing.
Oh.
That was a fun
I remember getting into it with
experience.
somebody else about that.
I learned more about I just was there to help execute the plan. So I wasn't here all the stuff beforehand, but I got stuck having to make sure it was set up.
Learn more about signs.
I know so much more about signs and signposts and options.
By
and-
way of, we can do whatever we want to do, but as opposed to before, when we're talking about BES, across the street is a two flaming torches, but a BMS, we've got neighbors, so we should just be cognizant of whatever the luminosity of the sign is.
Yeah, it's gonna be real light, real low lumens, just something when you're driving by, if, you know, it's voting day in March, you're gonna be able to see it at nighttime when you're driving by, so.
And that sign we're wheeling out to the street.
I know, I've always hated, yeah.
No,
It's gonna have a free sign on it. Free.
That's gonna be great, like honestly,
So, yeah, so.
forward-facing stuff like that.
Brian and
makes a
I
big
have been
difference.
collaborating on it. I never really rush into anything. I take a look at it, I step back, I look at it again, and then I bring Brian in, then we discuss it again. And then we bring it to leadership, just to see what everybody thinks, and then we'll go and execute, bring it to you guys and let you know what we think.
And once it does come time to get rid of that rolling sign, and I'll recuse myself from any final decision, but I know of a youth association in town that would love to have something like that for sign-ups and things like that in the springtime for the corner, so
If that just happens to show up in your yard
Probably
some
willing to
afternoon.
just keep those
Yep, we can
folks
do
up on
that.
Smoke Street in mind.
Yep. Yeah, so that's pretty much about everything on my end of things. Any questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Beat that.
It's a lot of pressure to be fast, sorry. I will do my best, but I just have a few updates for you. I'm not gonna do a full report like I do in the mid-year report. You've already had that. There will be another one at the end of the year to kind of compare our data and look at where we're at. This is just kind of an update as to where we are now. I think our district-wide positions don't generally get talked about a lot, right? Because they're kind of behind the scenes. I call them, you know, they're the kind of do-it-all people that are behind the scenes that we don't really see. I see them a lot. Elizabeth sees them a lot. The principals see them a lot, but you guys don't necessarily hear about them. So Brittany Frazier is our new OT who's working at BES, BMS, and Seacoast Charter School. She's been an incredible find for us. She's working really hard to implement proactive strategies within our buildings for our students that are, you know, wiggle worms, that need a little bit more but might not need OT services. We've been kind of band-aiding that and patching that together for years, and she's really taking a look at that. So we've got mazes amongst the school and handprints and footprints and all sorts of things for students to do now, which is great. I do want to kind of highlight that there is an impact with her going over to Seacoast Charter School. It does take about half a day to 3/4 of a day for her, a week, for her to go over there and service, test, do IEP meetings, whatever is needed. So we're kind of just keeping a close eye on that to make sure that she can manage all of our students that are in need. Our social worker, Kelly Venetos, continues to be effective to collaborate with many families across our district. She has successfully, I've seen it, I've heard about it more recently, which has been kind of fun to hear, with supporting parents becoming effective members of their child's school teams where maybe they weren't before because they just didn't have those resources or knowledge. So it's been kind of fun to see those parents come to the table and be effective. So kudos to her for that hard work. Students really kind of gravitate towards her, and she has a nice approach with them as well. Jess Linden, who is our board certified behavior analyst, is everywhere with everybody, doing all of the things all of the time. She, you know, I talk about her a lot, but she's quite amazing. She's worked this year on, with any new position in special ed or student services comes forms, permissions, all sorts of legal things that come with that. So she's worked really hard this year on forms to access a behavior analyst, to do functional behavior assessments, to do observations, what all of that looks like so that we don't run into a bind in the long run legally. Very thankful for her expertise there. I could not do that on my own. Extended school year, we actually are in very good shape staffing wise. We kind of are hearing across the seacoast that people are panicking because they don't have staff. I'm actually I don't want to say it out loud, but I'm going to, a little worried we have too much staff. So I'll have to make some decisions once I know student final numbers for each grade. I don't know currently, those are coming in at this point. ESOL I'm going to bring back to the table pretty regularly for you guys, only because it's a number that I am watching closely. We do have 11 students currently identified. Historically, we have had 2 to 3, so it has increased. We do currently have 3 staff members from SLC. There's one at the ECLC, there's one at BES, and there's one at BMS. Not all week, but throughout the week. So we are utilizing 3 of their staff members to support our needs. I am aware of 2 students that we are currently kind of watching to see if they will need to be screened based on their home learning language screener, and then also kind of their performance in class and how that's working. So I anticipate that number to increase. We did increase that in our budget for next year. I do want to just make note that as of today, we have paid out $57,402.80 for this service in particular. We have budgeted $81,376 for next year. So while I anticipate that our budgeted number is okay, it's fairly high, and I just want to continue to bring that back to you guys for the future. Off the top of my head, I don't know a number of days, but I know we have a 3-day-a-week person at BES.
No, that's what I mean. How many days per week? 3 days a week for that?
For that individual person, there's Perry is at middle school a day and a half, and then Bick is at the ECLC for 1 day. So essentially a full week is what we're paying for someone right now.
So at what point does it make sense that we hire?
That's why I keep bringing it back to you, because I do think eventually we're gonna have a conversation of do we need to hire our own staff member, because it doesn't make sense to continue to pay someone else to
Much
contract
like we
this
did
service.
with, when we contracted out for BCBA services.
Right.
And then it's like, wait a minute, we're getting 2.5 days of service for the same amount of money. We can have a full-time 5-day-a-week person. So we're almost at the tipping point.
Yeah.
At 87,000.
Yeah.
And I will say that a lot of our students that are qualifying for ESOL are move-ins, or they're our youngest learners, right? So I don't anticipate with all of the building that really drastically decreasing again. I anticipate it actually increasing or remaining the same, hopefully. Families in transition, which historically has been called homeless, but families in transition is a much nicer way to state it. Our current percentage is 1.8 of our population, so while it doesn't really seem high, it's high for us. Part of that is the laws have changed around doubling up and what that looks like. So we do have several families in our district that are doubled up at the moment. With that comes a bill, as you guys can imagine, for transportation. So some of that money comes from Title I, because Title I we have to have written in there a homeless portion of that grant to supply not only transportation, but backpacks and clothing and school materials, things that students may need to be successful at school to remove those barriers. We had $7,000 moved into that this year. I'm at the tipping point with that because of transportation. We have $5,000 in our budget. I'll start dipping into that, but I am nervous that we're going to go a little over in that. Busing is very, very expensive right now, and I'm currently busing 4 students in and out of different towns. So when we do that, we do cost share with other districts, so it's a half. So like, for instance, if a student is going to Rochester, right? Rochester pays half the bill, we pay half the bill, so which is nice. That's part of it. But it doesn't come without a cost. So I just kind of want to highlight that, because I don't anticipate that really changing given the laws around families in transition now. Staffing, obviously we remain down a case manager at BES. I will say the case managers that are currently there, teachers don't get enough credit anyways, but they really are heroes. They are managing, Kristen and Rebecca in particular, are managing as high as 33 students right now, which is a lot of students to case manage. Kim Royer has also taken on students across the entire 1 through 4, so she's kind of all over the place, but her caseload remains low because she is our first grade case manager, and we really wanted to have her pushing in to class as much to support those early interventions as much as possible. So I am incredibly grateful for their work. I will say that, you know, they have not skipped a beat with students. They have not skipped a beat with parents. You would not walk into a meeting and think that these people are overworked and stressed. Parents continue to praise them. So it's quite incredible. On the bright note, while it is an opening, we do already have one applicant. I imagine with contracts going out all over the state and people kind of shifting and moving, hopefully we will get a couple more and we can start that process, but I'm hopeful that we already have one. It's better than we were at the beginning of the year with applicants, so that's a good thing. Other student services and special ed openings is the BES case manager. We do have a speech assistant position open for BES. The 5th grade case manager position is open. And I'm like so excited about this, but the 60% nurse position, I wanted to thank you guys for approving that position. It really is going to be huge for our students that have complex medical needs. I have 3 applicants.
Oh, wow.
Right.
That's
So,
incredible.
and 3 very like viable, awesome, amazing applicants that I know well because they're currently subbing for us. So
That's great.
I'm thrilled about that. Yeah.
Why is it going to be awesome for the kids? Like, I'm not just curious.
No, that's a good question. So I will give 2 examples. For some of our students that are on certain classes of medication, you have to have an RN deliver that medication.
Okay.
If I do not have an RN that can sub for that day or that is going to be present in the building, it's not safe for that child to be at school.
Got it.
So now I'm asking the parent to either come in and monitor their child all day, which has an impact on the parent and the family, or I'm calling that kid out.
That's awesome. Okay.
Right? So
Yep.
this will really allow our students to break that barrier, and we won't be that issue anymore, which is great. So then the other pieces are we have several students from the ECLC that have one-on-ones. There are 4 of them right now that will be moving to BES, so there'll be some para shifting. There's a couple students headed to BMS, and we're going to have to hire a couple paras as well. We are still down a para. I will say Tony Lynch has taken on the task with me. She finds it very fun. It's not something that I find fun, but she's really enjoying it. I'm going to put into place what I'm calling a para determination doc. So instead of us just making a decision that a student may need more support, it'll be more data driven, and people will really have to look at it before we make a decision about that. So hopefully that will help us and students better, because we want students to be independent, not dependent on others. Our transportation contract is up at the end of next year, I believe, right? 2025. So I'm bringing this up just kind of proactively. I am currently really struggling with specialized transportation. I'm currently running 3 companies. So, and I also am paying a parent to transport their child, which we can do, right? It's not the best case scenario, but the parent is more than willing to do that. So I'm currently working with SLC, Durham Transportation, and our bus company, but we are down a bus for our specialized transportation, and I can't, with the families in transition, are out of districts, and then the number of students that require specialized transportation in our district, I've had to branch out. So I just want to be mindful of that, because that has obviously a cost impact as well.
What's the going rate for transporting your own child?
You get the federal rate per mileage. Mileage, yeah.
It's actually the most economical.
Yeah, it is. If everybody would, no, I'm kidding.
No, I was just curious what that's.
Yeah. So I've actually, the other transportation companies, I've been able to negotiate to keep them under what Dale is, so I've not really had to like go above that for the daily rate of the transportation, but it doesn't go without the fact that we have 3 contracts to transport our kids. So looking ahead, one of our biggest challenges is Medicaid, to be honest. We don't get the most that we could out of Medicaid billing. So we've met with Gretchen, who we've worked with for years and years and years. There's all sorts of new forms and rules and laws and all sorts of things around Medicaid that she's working with me on. She is merging with a company called Relay. I've met with Relay twice now. It seems pretty fantastic. The percentage that we would get back and that we would owe them would be about 2% higher than what we currently pay Gretchen. But in the long run, I really think it would be better. So next year, we're gonna continue on with Gretchen. She's merging with Relay next year, but they gave us that option. And then I'll have to look at it for the following year, but I do think it would be beneficial. They do kind of all of it for you, send you reminders when you haven't logged, you can kind of copy and paste and do all of the things. So I think we'd be better off and get more money back for reimbursement if we went with a company that was bigger. That's all I have.
That's a lot.
Any questions or comments from the board? All right, policies.
Just first read, right?
Yes.
So there's one change on CBI, and it looks to have been a typo from years gone by. It said, the very last line, address areas for the superintendent to improve and address areas for which the superintendent should be recommended, and it should say commended. So that change was proposed there.
No, these ones are not public.
The actual goal
The
setting
actual
and evaluation
forms is what
process.
we do. This just says that we're gonna do one. Oh, sorry, go.
And then CM School District Annual Report. We did not have one, so the one you see in front of you is taking into account some area school districts as well as NHSBA's recommended policy, and then that is the wording there for a new one for us, for School District Annual Report, and it's something that we do.
I was just about to add that in. We already are doing
We
an
already are
annual
doing
report.
it. So just making it more, visible, transparent to what we do. LDA, the Student Teaching and Internships. If you remember at one of our last meetings, we happened to have the UNH supervising teacher who lives in town happened to be present. And we, in fact, have been paying, and our policy was just not in line with what we currently do. We did add some additional language because there are some higher ed institutions that don't allow you to sub while you're doing your student teaching. So we added that in there as permitted by his or her credentialing institution, and struck out the check is to be paid by the student teacher and added in will be paid by the district. So made those adjustments to that policy there.
So can you just explain why the agenda says committee recommends to rescind?
That's the next one.
That's the next one.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah. So the next one, the role, or the, not the role, the, what am I, I'm missing a word here.
Appointment?
No, the policy committee's charge over the last year and a half or so, or our guardrails around has been to look at priority policies first, recommended as they apply to our district, and be very, with a very close eye on optional policies. If they're optional, they should be pertinent to our district, like our lottery procedure, and most of optional policies are, very specific to particular school districts. So when they are optional and not needed, we have taken the approach of rescinding them. So that is why that is a recommend to rescind. It detailed a process around, a transition strategy, and, it sounds like it was maybe adopted or written when there was some conflict in some other district in the past. I don't know that it ever happened here, but, so that is why that it's in recommend to rescind, because it was an optional policy.
I'd like to make a motion to accept for first read policies CBI, CM, and LDA, and to rescind policy CBB.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. All right, we have come to our second opportunity for public comment.
Hopefully you feared not.
Fretted.
Fretted.
So we'll start again in person.
Making me turn down.
Since my 3-year pet project got discussed here a little bit, I would see this committee certainly has no legislative ability. No one's going to make decisions on this committee. My vision of this thing is that we all meet, we talk about things, and then come back to our respective boards. So I'm not sure there's any conflict. I can assure you that Chief Walker does not hesitate to confront the select board. So yeah, he's not going to fall in just because one of the select board says to go one way or the other. So I don't think there's particularly a conflict of interest here, because this committee, I think, will, or at least my vision of this committee would be that we would discuss these things, and we can say, this is a good idea, this seems like a good idea. Then it comes to the boards, and it's the boards that make these decisions. This is not an elected body, has no legislative standing. I think this is just a convenient way for us to carry on some conversation here that both the respective boards can address, and the boards then will make decisions, not this committee. So just my comment on that.
You're in cahoots with Walker.
Yeah, exactly.
I hate him to say that.
I'm afraid of him. I just realized he has hair. I've never seen him with hair.
Any hands online? I don't see any.
Do you want me to make a motion?
Citing IRSA 91-A:3,
Parentheses A.
Second.
Non-public.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.
See y'all.